Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and stimulating talk, taking over your Sunday. It's the redneck here, Brian Bro, with the fearless one, C.V. Burton.
Yeah. And I'm angry today, too.
And the meaner one, Chet Martin.
Oh, sí, señor. Órale, vatos.
That's a lot going on over at the border. That's just my tribute to the border.
That's your border impersonation?
Yeah, I got the
detainee.
People can't see it out there, but I'm actually wearing one of Melania's jackets on, and it says "I really don't give a what" on the back of it. No, all the outrage and everything, ridiculous. We're going to be talking about all that, but we got great guests coming by today. We have Libertarian candidate running for the governorship in New York, Larry Sharpe, coming by. Featured guest from Clash Daily, the creator of Clash Daily, Doug Giles, is going to be coming by.
Big one.
And also Francesca Amato Banfield. She is the author of Punished for Protecting. And that's her experience with CPS and the family courts and the disaster that she went through in trying to regain custody of her child.
Yeah. And, it's something that needs to be talked about because there is definitely a bias that goes on in our court system, family court, and it's something that needs to be talked about because, there are things that go by the wayside. There are kids that are being abused that parents can manipulate and use the system against other parents, and these kids ultimately are put in harm's way.
Well, some of the worst cases are where CPS comes in, and I was reading one of these the other day, and I think it was on The Blaze. And the child was taken out of the home, and it was a peaceful home living with the father. This was a little girl, and she was put into a home where then she was abused by the people that were taking care of her, that she was relocated to.
Really?
And this is happening throughout America.
That right there, in and of itself, should be something that you could sue the courts over.
Yeah, you should be able to, but it's all political.
They are liable 100% for that.
Right. It's all political, though, Brian.
It's sick. Speaking of political, this one I love. The United States has officially left the UN Human Rights Council over anti-Israel bias. This is awesome. Listen, it's about time that America stands up to the UN.
Mm-hmm.
We fund the biggest portion of the UN budget every single year.
Big time.
Big time.
Big time.
I think, and I would love to see Donald Trump pull out of the UN altogether. But obviously, I'm sure that's probably a congressional approval type of thing and would have to be a bill that's, ratified by Congress.
He would if he could,
approved.
Trust me.
But I think we should pull out. I'm glad that we're able to do this much at least.
Yeah.
I'm sure it has something to do with the fact that he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and most of the nations were against that.
Exactly.
And I remember Rabbi Weiss, who was spokesman for the Sanhedrin in Israel, who was calling on Trump and Putin to build the third temple on the Temple Mount, which in biblical prophecy, I mean, I'm not religious, but I am a believer, is the running of the Messiah's return. Well, for the Jews, it would be the Messiah in the first coming, but for us, it would be like the second coming.
Well, the reason that they're saying that the UN has a bias is because the UN publicly made statements that they were in line with Palestine over Israel
Every time.
Every time, but they officially really came out and
said it,
and hammered it. And you know what? The Trump administration and Nikki Haley said enough's enough, and she went in front of them. She actually walked out of the room because she's our representative over there. And now, I like Nikki Haley. At first, I didn't. I actually like me some Nikki, but I'll tell you, RT goes and throws it in our face, and everybody knows what RT is. It's the Russian media group, and they put out the tweet that we had officially left the UN, and of course, for the picture, they show the migrants on the border that are separated from the families, saying now basically drawing a parallel that we're leaving the Human Rights Council because we don't believe in human rights anymore.
No, criminals get separated from their children when they commit crimes. Simple as that. go drink and drive, put your kids in the car, and see what happens when you get pulled over.
Right.
You're going to be arrested. Your children are going to be separated from you. They are going to be placed in CPS care until they can be placed with a family member, and if a family member cannot be found, they will go to foster care. So it's not that we don't believe in human rights and have compassion for others. I think that this simply comes down to there's a bias in the UN, and why should we fund? This has been a narrative of the Trump administration that I have actually agreed with. Why should we fund Iran so that they can build nukes? Why should we fund or provide support to nations that hate us? Why should we fund the United Nations when they are going to be, against one of our best allies, our biggest ally, I would think, Israel?
They're against Israel, but they're also against America because we're allies.
Well, there are 47 member states in the UN, and a lot of those member states.
Well, actually, 47 in the Human Rights Council.
In the Human Rights,
more than it's like 170
right.
something in the.
But there are member states in there that cause human rights travesties and atrocities.
There's member states that call for death to America.
Right. So why would you want to even be in something that's so backwards like that? I mean, Human Rights Council. But meanwhile they're gassing their people.
Apparently,
come on, it's ridiculous.
Well, it goes both ways in my opinion, because where's the human rights for the people and the citizens of
Israel,
Germany? Where's the civil rights for the people and citizens of the UK, France, Sweden,
right,
Finland, Norway,
where they're talking about human rights when and believe me, this is true. The UN is the one that decides where to flood these migrants.
Sure.
Or these refugees, rather.
Yeah.
And they know what they're doing, trust me.
It's like Obama depositing the refugees, the Muslim refugees, all along the Bible Belt in America to turn red states blue.
That's right. And the UN is as sick as, I mean, it's almost like you could believe that they sit the migrants down and say, okay, what kind of women do you like? Oh, you like blonde women? All right, we'll send you over to Sweden.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's sick.
It is sick.
Electing Trump was like our Brexit.
Well, where does this go from here? Do we get back in line with them or what?
I think that we need to stay out of it, and I think it should be an example and a statement to the UN that this is our first move. If you don't start doing things the way that you're supposed to be doing them, then our next move will be to remove ourselves from
I
the
didn't
UN.
read the list of all the 47
and if we do
member states in the UN Human Rights Committee here, but is Israel part of it? I'm guessing no.
No, because then I'm sure they would have pulled out as soon as we did.
Yeah.
But I would love to see if we ever did leave the UN, kick them right out of this country. Get them freaking white vehicles with the UN on. Get all their people with their blue helmets. You're out of here.
I love how the left stream media calls Trump Hitler and his supporters Nazis when it's the left who hate Israel and hate Jews.
Absolutely. What did Goebbels always said? He said to point your flaws out to your opponent.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they do, and they do it very well. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate though that folks on the right kind of have lost their balls. They're scared to say anything, and they're scared to stand up. I know not you, and I know not us, but there are people out there that, well, you gotta be careful in what you say, and you want to work with the other side. When do they ever want to work with us? They don't.
They never want to work with us, and that's half the problem. You know what I mean? We have to take a stand for what we believe in. And I said something to my son at his graduation last night. Sometimes when you're standing alone, you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Listen, when we come back, we're going to be talking about Comey under investigation by the Inspector General Horowitz. Don't turn the dial. 94.9 News Now, stimulating talk. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. You're rocking with the best.
Rock and roll.
Amen. You gotta love that Comey is finally under investigation. Finally.
Yeah.
Now, what will ever come of it, that we'll have to stay tuned and see what'll happen, obviously. I don't know if it's going to go where we want it to go.
I don't know either.
Nobody knows.
You know, I don't think that you have the right players in the right positions to really hammer this home and present this in a way kind of like you could Mueller them.
Yeah, right.
You know? I don't think we have anybody that's going to Mueller them.
Well, what scares me and what you're talking about, if you guys could bear with me for 1 second, I want to read something for you.
Time's up.
And this comes out of the Gateway Pundit, and this is through Tom Fenton from Judicial Watch. Conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch reported on Thursday that Senator John McCain's former staff director, Henry Kerner, urged the IRS, including the corrupt liberal Lois Lerner, to engage in financial ruinous targeting of conservative Tea Party groups. Now, you remember all that. Conservative Treehouse reported more on Henry Kerner on Friday. Kerner currently serves at the special counsel in the United States Office of the Special Counsel. Judicial Watch accused Henry of urging the IRS in the ruinous targeting of conservative and Tea Party groups this afternoon. Gateway Pundit spoke with Kerner. Henry told us that the report is inaccurate. He worked for Rep. Darrell Issa and was a member of the Harvard Republican Club. Henry disputes this week's reports. He says the IRS targeting scandal was strictly a Democrat endeavor. He agreed with the Gateway Pundit that Judicial Watch is an excellent organization. But what they're saying here is that this guy who targeted these IRS groups is still in these special counsel investigations, the same ones that will be investigating James Comey.
Yep.
And Hillary Clinton. And if it comes down to it, Mueller. And, you know, the list that you go down the line. So when you have corrupt people in these positions of power, including the IG, the AG, and folks like Mr. Kerner here, how the hell are you ever going to get anything done?
Well, I think how you get it done is the first step to all this is exposure. So you have to expose them. You have to expose the truth. And that is what is happening. I mean, the truth is coming out. We are seeing that. And, so this is just the first step. So first you got to expose them. You got to expose the truth. Once the truth is out there and you have enough, forward motion, then you can take it to the next level. And you can also get these players out of the way. But you can't get these players out of the way if the truth's not out there, because then they'll just simply say it's fake news, it's a lie.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, and
nonsense.
and CV mentioned this to me, and I agree with him 100%. That's why the media was putting all the focus on the southern border, which has been the same practices have been going on since the beginning of time when people started to come in through the southern border.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden it's a big deal. Why? Because of this IG report and
Right.
and the
And the
grilling
hearings.
and the hearings that they had. It's so you weren't paying attention to it.
Right. Took it right off the front page.
Right, because if they focus on something out, they can't report on the other things, right?
Follow the bouncing
Oh,
ball.
I'm sorry, they can.
They totally swept it under the rug. Nobody's talking about it at all except us right now.
Right.
No one is. He's right.
It's the truth.
Even the conservative shows aren't.
Well, because the
Because
problem with it is that they get it's kind of like you get drugged down the rabbit hole. So as soon
Exactly.
as soon as you have 6 liberal media outlets that your major ones that are reporting on the border situation, your more conservative ones, to use that term loosely, like Fox, have to go down the rabbit hole with them and report on it, because now they're forced to report the counter report to what is being reported at the border. You know what I'm saying? So that you have all this going on, and they have to now battle against that to say, hey, no, this isn't really what's going on. This is what's going on, and here's the truth, and all that nonsense. And it kind of keeps them and prevents him. It's a really smart tactic.
Well, you hope that Fox News is, but I was shocked, even though I don't like him, Juan Williams, when he was on the roundtable discussion with the Five.
Well, you have to have your token liberal.
And he said that he actually had sympathy for Peter Fonda and his comment about Barron Trump being put in a cage with pedophiles. This is the type of people they have working at Fox News now.
But let's get back to this Comey.
Fantastic.
Let's get back to this Comey investigation thing for a second.
Okay.
The investigations are where allegations go to die. Because we have enough information to prosecute. Let's skip the investigation and go straight to the prosecution because Comey admitted that he leaked classified information. He was proud of it. He even said it. He said it when he was being questioned in Congress. And I find it very amusing how Horowitz uses such phrasing, choice of words, as Comey mishandled classified information when it's just a softer way of saying he leaked classified information, which is a crime. But when he says mishandled, it makes it sound like it's not a crime. It's sort of like when Comey said, instead of you saying gross negligence, which is a crime in the Hillary case, he chose the words extreme carelessness to make it not seem like a crime. So this IG is just like Comey, and he's going to investigate Comey?
Well, the IG was
They're
put
birds
into
of a
place
feather.
by Barack Obama.
Yeah.
He's a Barack Obama appointee.
They're birds of a feather. They're using the same stupid tactics.
And
Of McCabe, he said he was less than candid in front of Congress. Less than candid? No, he lied. That's a crime.
And
but you know what? Hey, I feel his sentiment on it. I feel CV's sentiment on it because you want to know something. That is the frustration that you have when you read this stuff daily, and especially when you're in a position like we are and you're trying to keep up on all this information and all the different sources and all the different articles and reports, and it gets frustrating because you see the bias, you see how they are just playing the narrative one way, and you're not getting the justice for America.
And all you have to do is really look with your own eyes. You know, I hear people debating, is there biased? Well, when he was on CNN with the silver-haired gay fella there, what's his name?
They're all gay on CNN.
Well, what's his name? The Cooper, Anderson Cooper.
Yes.
When he's on with him in a town hall, Anderson Cooper says, who were you supporting? Point blank, he says Hillary Clinton. So if he's the one investigating the Clinton emails, what do you think's going to happen? And if he's the one investigating the supposed collusion with Trump and Russia, which never existed, what do you think they're going to try to do? They're going to try to throw whatever sticks on the wall. And that's exactly what James Comey did. So don't give me that there's no bias. There's bias throughout the FBI, and through 8 years under Obama, and probably before that with Bush too, it became very corrupted.
Him saying that it's bias is bias.
Well, he admitted he's biased. That's the point.
Well, I think
He
you hit the
admitted
nail
it.
on the head with the corruption, you know, and a lot of people are fooled by that and think, oh, you know, this is America, you know, land of
Exactly.
justice and freedom, you know, and yes, that is true to a point. It's true only for you little people.
What did Ronald Reagan
You
say?
little people that are driving too fast on the highway or drink and drive or do something stupid. That's where justice is upheld. When it comes to Hillary Clinton, she gets the slide. When it comes to Comey, she gets the slide. When it comes to Chris Saucier, he doesn't get the slide. He has to fight for the truth and to be set free.
And, you know, it was Ronald Reagan that said you're only one generation away from losing your freedom.
That's right.
And that is, truer words could never be spoken
And 1,000 years of darkness.
by a great man. And thank God we have another great man as president now. But listen, folks, come on back. We have libertarian candidate running for the governorship in New York, Larry Sharpe. This is a big one for Long Islanders. Keep it right here. Freedom on deck. And welcome back to Freedom on Deck 94.9 News Now and stimulating talk WJJF on your FM dial. Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Long Island. Long Islanders, we got a candidate coming on for you. It's our next guest, and he's running for the governorship of New York on the Libertarian ticket. And we urge you to go visit his website, www.larrysharpe, that's SHARPE.com. Larry, welcome to Freedom on Deck, sir.
Thank you so much. Don't forget the E at the end of my name stands for electable.
Very good, very good. Well, Larry, okay. So this is a conservative talk show. It's a conservative station. Our listening audience is greatly Republican-leaning. Tell our listeners on Long Island why they should consider voting for Larry Sharpe.
Look, here's the reality. If you're a conservative in New York State right now, you don't have a candidate, not for governor. Locally, you might, and it's possible, but conservatives and Republicans haven't won a statewide election in New York State in over a decade, and the state's just getting bluer. So that's not working. There's no candidate for you because the Republican cannot win. They will never win. He's a sacrificial lamb who has been making no attempt at winning and is happy fighting for second and third place. The Democrat, our current governor, His Majesty King Cuomo, he has literally said, his words are, there's no place for conservatives in this state.
That's right.
So what's your option? Your option is stay home. That's option one. Your other option is waste your vote on a Republican who's never going to win. And the worst part is nothing will change if you vote for your Republican.
Right.
Or you can vote for Libertarian. Here's what I am. I'm not the perfect conservative, and I don't pretend to be one. I'm not the perfect Republican. I'm not. But here's what I do. I respect the conservatives. I respect Republicans. I respect everyone's lifestyle to be the way they want to be, to do what they want to do. I am one of the rare politicians who actually knows that New York State is not just New York City. And very few politicians understand that. I love this state. I live in this state. I'm born and raised in this state. I don't want to move away. Over 100,000 New Yorkers are leaving our state every single year. We've lost almost 1 million since Cuomo became our dear leader. I don't want to become part of that stat. Why do I love New York? Because New York is diverse. There are conservatives, there are mountains, there are cities, there are rivers, there are liberals, there are lakes, there is everything in New York State.
Don't forget,
you can get wineries.
Larry, don't forget Long Island.
Yes, you have wineries. I was on there, right? You got wineries on Long Island. You've got all kind of great things that you can imagine a state. Now, if I love this state's diversity, guess what? I have to respect this state's diversity. And my biggest goal, my overall arch, is to allow local government to decide more for the local people, and instead of state government not deciding, I know everything for everybody, but instead I'm going to protect the rights of the individual from the local bullies who will always pop up. But right now the local bullies are part of the machine, and it's just making things worse, and we're fleeing our state, and we're unhappy.
Larry, Governor Cuomo's administration has been under investigation into payroll practices, among other issues. Now, do you plan on going after him on these issues leading up to November?
Not at all. I'm not, and here's the reason why. I'm not a big fan of putting people in jail for corruption. And it sounds crazy, but hear my logic.
Okay.
We've been doing that for decades. And what happens is it fools the people into believing we're doing something about corruption. We're not. In reality, it's the system that's broken. I don't care. I just want His Majesty to step down and walk away. I don't care what happens. Just go away. Let me get in and fix the system. The system has to be more about transparency and responsibility. It is about neither of those two things. What we always do is hide stuff behind closed doors, and we create a bunch of boards and authorities and councils and corporations and all these things where it's basically a big shell game where no one knows who's giving who what. And what happens is that winds up protecting him from corruption. What he does is he puts people on these boards and these authorities and all these places, and then they give him literally hundreds. You do your own homework. He's gained about $800,000 from people he's put on boards. Then these board members do corrupt things. But he's safe because what he did was legal. So that's why everyone around him goes to jail, but not him. Do I want to fight this? It's not worth my time. I'd rather fix New York and make life better for us. If we do the right thing in New York, within the next 4 years, we can turn this state around. I want to focus on that.
All right, Larry, I've got a bit of a hard question here for you if you're ready for it.
I'm good.
All right, the issues on the southern border are a hot button in the media, to say the least. But, you know, the citizens of Brentwood, Long Island, have lost loved ones to the MS-13 street gang. And some of these murderers came through the southern border. As a matter of fact, one of the last that were prosecuted came from El Salvador. And, and then they're located to Long Island. First, what's your position on immigrants being relocated in your state? And secondly, how would you push back against the scourge of the MS-13?
There's a couple things. The first thing is we have to realize something. This falls back to the concept of what a sanctuary city or sanctuary state is. Most people don't know what that actually means.
Right.
What that means is how much does a city or state or county decide to help ICE? Do they actually just help ICE when ICE asks? Do they actually earmark money? Do they put part of their budget to it? All those things. Here's the reality of New York State. New York City is never not going to be a sanctuary city. And that makes a lot of people outside the city angry. They don't like it. And they say, New York City should follow the law. That would be wonderful. They're not gonna. What I'm afraid of happening is it becoming like California, which is basically going to become a sanctuary state. And I don't want that. What I want to do is I want to allow local communities to set their own rules and regulations. I want to allow Suffolk County, if they feel it's appropriate, to earmark money, to get rid of the actual mandates that we have from Albany and Washington that control Suffolk County's budget, and instead let Suffolk County spend as much money as it wants helping ICE or not helping ICE or defending it or creating its own groups, whatever the case may be, taking its money to do what it thinks is appropriate. And on top of that, saying no if Suffolk County doesn't want the immigrants. Look, the odds are Manhattan's going to say, yes, give it to us. Then send them to Manhattan. No problem. Send the immigrants to where the local people want them. What will happen is those areas that are less immigrant-friendly will have a different problem than those who are more immigrant-friendly. Not just that, regions will pop up and figure out what's the right amount of money and time and energy to spend on their immigrant issues. Right now, I don't know what the right amount of money to spend in Suffolk County is, and I shouldn't know and I can't know. But the people in Suffolk County have to figure that out, and I want to help them do it. I want to let them do it, and if they want to say no, I'm fine with them saying no. There are others who will say yes. Now, people say to me, but Larry, then immigrants will go to New York City. They're going to go anyway. If I don't do this, New York City is going to dictate the rest of the state. And you already see Cuomo doing this. You see Nixon talking about giving driver's license to illegal immigrants. You see what the left is already doing. If we don't implement this, the entire state will go sanctuary, which I want to stop. And if that happens, it'll be like California. And this is interesting. California has an idea, believe it or not, to punish counties who don't go sanctuary.
Yes,
so the state
I do know
that's
that.
ignoring the nation will punish a county that's ignoring the state, and they see no hypocrisy in that. I do not want New York State to go that route. This is my answer.
Mr. Sharp, what would you do about property taxes? Because I've been in my house for 20 years, and my property taxes have doubled. And on your website, you said under Cuomo, it's only been going up 2% over the last couple of years. And if that's true, my property taxes should have only went up 40%. It actually doubled. It's over 100%.
I hope I didn't say that. I hope you read that wrong. What Cuomo has said, he said that because he has a 2% property tax cap. I hope that's how you read it. That's on my website. I need to change it because that's what it should say. His Majesty has said so because he's put a 2% property tax cap. But there is a massive loophole in property tax which I will close.
All right.
And the loophole is, right now, you don't actually vote on your property taxes. Your council does. Every other tax you have to vote on. Now, when you have a county that is literally one-third Medicaid, one-third Medicare, and dwindling population with rising mandates from Albany and Washington, D.C., with money they have to spend, they have to find ways to raise money. They are literally strapped. So there are only two ways of doing it. Number one, they use the loophole. They go behind closed doors. They declare an emergency, because if you declare an emergency, you can go past the 2% cap, and then they go past the 2% cap. So that's what's been happening. I will make a line item issue in that law that says the people must vote for property taxes individually, which means every November or whatever, you want to go to ballot, the whole county has to agree, this is an emergency, raise all of our property taxes. Guess what? That's not going to happen. I want a property tax cap of 0, no raising whatsoever, unless the entire county votes it's an emergency.
How about reduce property taxes?
I love that idea too, but let the counties decide to reduce it. They can't reduce it until I end the unfunded mandates. There are counties that literally 85 to 90% of their budget is mandated by either Albany or Washington, D.C. How in the world can they possibly lower taxes when they have to spend this money? This is a problem we have to end. If we get rid of property tax, the next thing they use law enforcement as a profit center.
Yeah.
These are the red light cameras,
Yep.
or your ticket that was $20, now it's $100, or you have a surcharge on your ticket of $200 for a court date, and you don't even go to court. That's how they begin to raise money. If we end the unfunded mandates, free the counties to have their own budgets, monitor them with an Office of Transparency from Albany, so they're not bullying their individual citizens, we can get the taxes to be lowered. But there's something more important I want to do here. That's local, and that's awesome, and I want to change that. At a state level, if we do the right thing here in the next 4 years, if we deal with our pension bomb, if we deal with Medicaid, Medicare, if we raise money other than through taxation, we can actually in the next 4 years get rid of our state income tax. That would get every single New Yorker a 4 to 8% raise without any employer having to spend any more money, and it will leave more businesses here in New York State, and more will want to come, and it stops us fighting Trump with his tax cuts. The battle goes away, which is what I want.
Larry, the floor is yours. So I want you to address your future voters on Eastern Long Island. Tell them why you're the clear choice for the governorship of New York in November.
Look, the answer here is if you want actual change, you've got to vote Libertarian. Here's why. I want you to imagine for 1 second. Right now, the recent polls, when people know who I am, I'm polling at 24%. 24% when people know who I am. A lot of people don't know who I am yet, so I'm thanking you guys for doing this. But when they do and they hear what I have to say, I'm polling at 24% with 5 months out. Now, you might say, 24, is that a lot? This is going to be a 5-way race. New York is a plurality state, which means I only have to have more than the rest. This is a winnable race at 30%. Can you imagine for a second if I just beat the Republican? I hear it all the time. Larry, what if you beat the Republican? That would be amazing. If I beat the Republican, several things will happen. Number one, the Republicans will learn a valuable lesson and realize they should stop being Democrat-like and should actually be Republican.
Amen.
It will teach them to be Republicans. But not just that. Democrats will say, holy crap, this libertarian is on our tail. Maybe we've gone too far. Why don't we get off the ledge and stop being crazy? Those two things will happen, not because they care, but because they won't have a choice. Me doing well actually has impact in our state. This is why you must vote Libertarian in 2018. Do you want to make an actual change? But not just that. Do you want someone actually talking about eliminating the state income tax? No one else is. Do you want someone talking about allowing counties to be who they are, to let people be as conservative or as liberal as they want to be without the federal or state government deciding what they can and can't do? No one else is talking about this. If you want these issues talked about and brought to the forefront, you've got to vote Libertarian November 2018. That's LarrySharp.com on the Facebook page, Larry Sharp for New York.
Everybody, that was Larry Sharp. Great guy, high energy. You heard it here on Freedom on Deck. He's the Libertarian candidate running for the governorship of New York. And I'll tell you what, really consider him because there's a lot of truth in what he said, folks.
I like Larry.
Me too.
Come on back to Freedom on Deck.
We're going to be talking about Long Island officers charged in a drug scandal, attempted robbery of an armored truck. It gets deep. 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk WJJF. You gotta love what's going on in Port Jeff.
What isn't going on in Port Jeff?
Oh man, we were just talking off air about a crazy incident that happened in Port Jeff not too long ago.
You don't want to know.
We're not going to get into the whole thing.
No, they had sex in public at a bus stop.
Broad daylight.
Broad daylight.
Yeah, and obviously they were both intoxicated, but it was crazy. It was crazy, and that's all we have to say about that. But in other news, a drug bust led to an arrest of 3 Nassau County police officers. 2 2 for their alleged involvement in a drug ring, and the third for allegedly conspiring to rob a patron at a local casino and an armored casino truck.
Unreal.
I mean, is this a movie plot? I mean, this is crazy that this is playing out in real life. Suffolk County District Attorney Tim Sini said Officer 28-year-old Eric Skloglund of Port Jeff Station and 32-year-old Karen Ernst of Bethpage accepted nearly 75 pounds of marijuana delivered from California on behalf of 29-year-old Daniel Caceres
That's a lot of weed.
Port Jeff Station. Okay, prosecutors said Caceres had been operating a drug ring since 2016 in which he would have pot and other narcotics delivered to co-conspirators who would then deliver the drugs to Caceres. 8 other people were named as operators in Caceres' alleged drug ring, and the story goes on. The sickest thing in this whole thing is that Bruce Moeller is facing charges for allegedly conspiring with Caceres to rob a high roller patron at Jake's 58 Casino in Islandia in May, and that his wife Christina Moeller worked at the casino and was informing her husband, who is an officer, when the patron would be there to come back to the casino to get his $75,000 in winnings. This is insane. I want to know one thing. Tim, hey, Timmy, are you going to prosecute these cops, or is the police union in your pocket too quickly? Are they? Do they got you by the gonads already?
The cajones?
Or are you gonna grill these guys to a higher standard than you would the normal citizen?
You mean the DA, right?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Sini.
Sini, put a W there. Yeah, exactly. Is Tim Sini or Tim Weenie or whatever you want to call him, is he any less corrupt than our last DA? Because our last DA was as corrupt as the nail in the crooked board. Absolutely corrupted. And God, I was hoping that Ray Perini was going to win and somehow get our law enforcement together on Long Island. Because look, we're a pro-police show.
Yeah.
But it seems like every week there's a story like this that has to do with law enforcement officers throughout Long Island. And God knows 99% of them are good, hardworking people. Definitely. The police have the toughest job in America. No doubt about it. I make no bones about it, and I'm not trying to talk in a negative fashion about our law enforcement officers. But when you see these three, really, I mean, these are cops. Look at them. Look at these mug shots. They look like
white trash.
They do. They look like white trash.
Moeller looks like he definitely likes the blow cane.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And that's the whole thing. When you got the unions who, the police unions controlled by the Democrats, and Sini's a Democrat, is he really going to do anything about stuff like this occurring?
Are you kidding me? You had in Southampton Police Department, you had an officer that was caught taking drugs out of the evidence locker and abusing them. He was taking drugs off of people that he was stopping, okay, and not arresting. They sent him to rehab. He got a little bit of rehab. And then he's back on the force?
Is he back on the force?
Yes!
What cop is this?
I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Trust me, it's happening. Look it up. Just Google it.
Right in Southampton.
Right in Southampton, New York.
Wait.
The corruption in Southampton PD goes deep, bro. And so does it in Suffolk County. And that's why I posed the question in the first place. Is Tim Sini, who sat there and ran on how he was going to end corruption in Suffolk County and that he wasn't going to be like his predecessor, is he going to do something about this, or is he just going to be like every other one, corrupt?
I think you just answered your own question. Or we wouldn't be asking the question if we had any confidence in Tim Sini.
Weenie.
Thank you for the correction. But, the truth of the matter is, when you look at folks like this that are serving in our law enforcement, it is a career that you can get involved with, and there are a lot of corrupt things that you can do when being a police officer, such as getting drugs out of a locker or harassing people.
Yeah.
There's
All
a
right,
ton of different.
I won't charge you, but I'm taking your 8-ball.
Right. Yeah, and you can get some corrupt people that get involved with law enforcement simply for those facts. You don't think that happens?
Well,
Of course it does.
I support our brave men in blue. Don't get me wrong, but is there a culture of corruption in our Suffolk County police force? I mean, Caceres and Moeller were plotting to rob Jake's 58's armored vehicle where they, move their money to their bank accounts. I mean, this is sick.
Right. I mean, it's like, as a police officer, I mean, what went through your head that you thought you were going to get away with something like that?
That's what I'm saying.
It's
Like, what is the
How brazen.
What is the test that they're given to become a police officer? Has it somehow become
who failed that? Who failed picking that guy's MO or his past or his character up in a psych test?
Well, has it ended? Have the qualifications become so low that you have people that are drug addicts and criminals in our law enforcement right now?
But that's what I'm saying. Law-abiding citizens have to go through a psych test in order to have a pistol permit in Suffolk County, and they have to get that psych test done by the same psychiatrist that performs these tests on these police officers. And oftentimes, citizens are denied for the lamest of reasons, and you have the same psychologists putting a pistol and a badge on these guys.
There was a movie called Serpico back
It's
in the
corrupt.
70s. Do you remember
Yep.
Serpico, who played by Al Pacino, where a good cop was trying to blow the whistle,
Yes.
and they tried to kill him.
Yes.
So every so often, like every 7 years or so, they have to clean it up because it's a tendency for the police force to become corrupt. We don't know how far and wide this corruption is. This is just 3 officers. It could be a lot more.
Absolutely. And I will tell you this as well, and not to get into another avenue of what's going on in our law enforcement right now, but we had a guest on not too long ago that was talking about giving drug tests to police officers, especially to see if they're using PEDs and steroids.
Yep.
Drive around sometime and look at some of the police. I can tell you this, some of them are using steroids.
Oh,
And that can change you as a person. It can give you anger issues.
Absolutely.
Make you more aggressive.
And make you more aggressive. And I do feel that out here, especially because, listen, Long Islanders have that kind of culture just like Jersey, fist-pumping Guidos that love to go to the beach and tan and look as good as they possibly can. And that's what these guys, that's what they look like to me.
Yeah.
So
Michael Savage highlighted an issue like that recently on Jersey Shore.
Right. So it's a worry. It definitely is. But we are going to come back with our next guest, Francesca Amato Banfield, and she is the author of Punished for Protecting. She's going to be exposing the corruption in the CPS and the family courts in America and in New York in particular, because that's where she's from. Don't miss a moment of Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk, WJJF on your FM dial. Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, rocking with the best. Go to Facebook, like us there. Follow us on Twitter. Make sure to go to BitChute and, sign up for our BitChute channel and also to our YouTube channel. But BitChute's really the place to go. That's where you get our midweek podcast. You'll get the follow-up archive of this show, and it's a great place to go listen if you missed any of our guests. It's something where you can just go pick out what you want to listen to, and we always appreciate feedback, so please give us feedback as well. Well, our next guest is national best-selling author of the book Punished for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court, Francesca Amato Banfield. Francesca, welcome to Freedom on Deck.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's great to have you. And one of the things you told us before we came on air was that you actually are featured on a television public access out on Long Island. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's one of them. It's PATV Long Island, and we air every Monday. We have actually Punished for Protecting a talk show, and then we have Punished for Protecting news. So
this all has to do with the corruption of the family courts and CPS and all that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. My book is actually regarding family court, but this brought in so much from what happened in our life that now we're literally going after it all: foster care, forced adoption, CPS, which I call child predator services, and of course family court.
Absolutely. Now you're a proactive advocate for family rights in America that decided to write this new bestseller in order to blow the lid off the unjust laws of the family courts. So what was your experience with the family courts? Tell us a bit about your story.
Well, it started a little over 10 years ago. My son was born, and I had ended a relationship actually before he was born, and the father was not in my son's life. He was, heavily into drugs and jail and different things that I was completely not a part of. And suddenly he was taking me to family court for full custody, like months later. And that's when it all started. And I got to get a taste of our horrific judicial system. And after, I don't know how many arrests he's had, placing my son into dangerous situations. I mean, I did always have the primary custody. I've always had a clean, background. I got very heavily involved in advocating. And I got involved with the local assemblymen and different senators and so on, and had many closed-door meetings and started pulling in all kinds of experts and just learning. And I was marveling because I thought it was just the court in Ulster County, New York, and I learned in a very short period of time, people were coming out of the woodwork, and they'd come to my meetings from the surrounding states. So I'm in New York, and they would come from Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey, all over. And I was just overwhelmed. And I would start working, helping other families, and I thought I had a bad situation. I couldn't even get over some of these tragedies and tragic stories. And as I would court watch this particular court or other courts, I would see that these judges would make the absolute opposite decision of anything that any normal person would make. It's like the most dangerous situation is the court ordering that they would make, the rendering that they would make. And little by little, I think we were going into our, I want to say, 9th year of court. And I was just like, I remember one day saying, what is going on here? How is it that I have an immaculate record? I work a full-time job. I have a great family. I don't do drugs or anything, and I can't just raise my child in peace. And that's when literally the lid blew off, and I decided to start collecting. Just on the several court judges in the Ulster County, I started collecting over 70 cases of child abuse, which these children were placed with forensic medical evidence of sex abuse, cigarette burns put out in their arms, you name it, and then the judges would literally place them with the perpetrator, and then tell their parents that they would have them arrested if they didn't let them go. And I was going through that very similar type of thing, and I just, the way it makes you feel alone, that you can't protect what you are built to protect.
So your son's father was abusing him.
So in my case, he was not. No, he was not. Matter of fact, he's better than a lot of the ones I've seen out there.
Okay.
but I mean, just not a healthy source. You know,
Right.
someone who does drugs, but more or less abusing himself. I believe he loves our son very much.
Okay.
I do see him now after all of that has happened here with our story and everything. I see him really making some changes for the first time.
Right.
He and I have not been in a relationship in over 10 years, together. But for the first time, now that he's out of jail, I actually am seeing some changes in him, and I'm happy to see that. And most people that I talk to, you do have your false allegation people, and you have the type of people that intentionally alienate a good parent. But the majority of people that I meet are good people who would rather see the father or the mother work together and co-parent.
Right.
But the courts don't allow that. They trigger chaos, But in all these other cases, when I reported, this is where our story began. After reporting 70 cases of child abuse, and I worked through the local, the local sheriff's department, and I worked with the local district attorney's office. We filed to the Committee on Judicial Conduct, and I was in charge of the whole thing. Everything got filtered through the district attorney's office. We were literally going after this one judge, and he decided after the report came back that it was unfounded on the judge, which was absolutely insane. I had 70 families literally in shock that sex abuse and all this other type of abuse to children didn't matter to our state at all. Just didn't matter. And after that, this judge, who was never my judge, he was never my judge in all these years, literally took my rights away, took my son from me. It was the most hellish ordeal. And I have a deeper compassion for parents that go through this now. 'Cause I can feel their pain at this time for real. And to know what they put my child through, what this very sick and evil man did to my entire family, and to a little boy.
Francesca, and I wonder this when you talk about judges and prosecutors and family courts, what would the reason be for them to put a child in a dangerous situation? The only thing I can come up with in my head is, aside from a political ideology, is perhaps they're pedophiles themselves, or they have sympathy for abuse, or they like the abuse of children, or they're somewhat dangerous themselves. Do you think there's anything of that going on?
I absolutely do. I believe we have a nation that is in crisis as far as pedophilia. As you probably recently saw, what just happened in Kansas with the abuse trees to children to hold them down, and all the pedophilia that's being exposed. This industry, this entire industry, and people, sometimes say to me, they automatically think too that it's child trafficking or child trafficking is the same thing. It's not the same thing, and this industry is child trafficking. It is to the extreme, and it's unfortunately not isolated. It is. There's an epidemic of it, but there is child sex trafficking all over. And if they're not trafficking them out like in a prostitution type of setting, they're trafficking them out to the parent that is actually doing this type of abuse. And I do believe that majority of these judges have crossed those boundaries in life where they don't have that conscience that a normal human being would have that would render a safe and healthy decision for children.
Francesca, excuse me, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
What can be done about these bad judges? How do you get rid of them? I mean, they're in there, right? I mean, they. I don't know. I mean, what do you do? How can you impeach them?
How do you fight back?
Yeah,
that's the $1 million question. There are so many ways to handle this. Punish for protecting. We do classes twice a week. We have experts all the time instructing our classes, and right now we have finally, I believe, for the first time, we have particular groups that have been anywhere from attorneys to just experts in law that are. And this is actually a several-prong answer, so I'll try to bring it all together. But they're doing a lot of different things right now. We're actually working very diligently right now to present to President Trump to have these judges arrested. They have to go to jail for these crimes against humanity. They are clear-cut felonies. If you look under Rules 241 and 242, that's one of the things that we're doing right now. Another is we have a gentleman by the name of Chris Hallett. He's teaching our classes and teaching everyone how to file congressionally. We have another gentleman named John Gentry, another brilliant man in law, as well as Kirk Pendergrass. And John is actually doing a huge national lawsuit right now. So this is all coming to a head. And just what you just saw recently with the borders and then separating children. Now, I'm one that believes in proper boundaries in our country and proper vetting and so on, just like if we were to go anywhere, okay? But at the same time, I am being a child advocate and a family advocate. I don't want to see children separated from parents. We have to have due process no matter what. With a country that doesn't have due process, you're instantly guilty before you're innocent versus the way it's supposed to be run. And when you're severing children from biological families, whether they be in this country or theirs, you've caused damage that you'll never fix. Now, in our own country, though, I'm highly offended that that came before us. When we've got over 700,000 children separated from their families in the past 2 years alone in America. And I can assure you that well over 80% of those families are not guilty of anything, and definitely not guilty enough to have their children taken from them. And sadly, we have seen throughout history where we all believed at one point that, oh, well, children were taken because she's a drug mother. Good that you took the children. Or he's, estranged, or he's a deadbeat dad. So good that you took the children. And we've come to learn that this is not true at all. And the ones that are drug mothers, they get rehabilitation given to them, everything paid for, and they return their children.
Well, Francesca, that leads me to a question that I want to ask you. With the narrative across this country of legalizing marijuana, and I just read it in Newsday that the Surgeon General of New York is going to come out and make recommendations to legalize marijuana in the state of New York. How's that going to affect families here in New York when you have a mother or father that's abusing marijuana and it's now legal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a problem because my sister is a national, or actually an international health expert, nutrition expert, and she's also a best-selling author, actually internationally. But we believe in holistic remedies very much. We're a family that doesn't drink, do drugs, or anything like that. There is marijuana that is medicinal in the sense of the oils. When you're smoking it, you're talking about getting behind the wheel of a car and you're no longer sober. You're talking about your reactions being slower. Okay, so there's a difference between the health benefits, which I am 100% for. I'm 100% for medicinal marijuana when it's the medicinal part of it. Again, when you're smoking it, it's a whole different thing there.
Right.
And just like you wouldn't want to be walking down the street when a person is drunk, I personally wouldn't want to be walking down the street when a person is not a bit high.
Right.
So I find this to be a very serious issue. And, I mean, it's just one more aspect of the mess that our country is in. And the more serious drugs that obviously it's opening the door to, let's face it.
Francesca, we have about a minute left, so I want you to get the website out to everybody and tell everyone where they can go check you out on television, on radio, on your website, and how they can get the book, please.
Okay. Well, probably the best thing to do, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter too, so the best thing to do is to just Google Punished, the number 4 Protecting. We are a nonprofit. And we're on YouTube. I'm on Facebook under Francesca Amato Banfield. And you can actually watch live broadcasts off of Facebook, YouTube, and there's multimedia broadcasting that has our program on 18 other broadcasts. I'm also on Panda TV, New York. I'm on Long Island is PATV, and we used to be on Contra Costa Delta TV, and we're looking for a new sponsor there. So we have Punished for Protecting TV and Punished for Protecting News, and we broadcast every Wednesday for the news right now.
Great. Okay, everybody, that was Francesca Amato Banfield. She's the author of Punished for Protecting, and go check out all the good stuff she said, like go Google Punished for Protecting. You can get all the information that way. Francesca, stay on the line because I want to book you again for next month, because I don't think we got into enough with these judges and all this corruption that's throughout the family courts and CPS.
You need a long time for that.
Come on back to Freedom on Deck, folks. 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Chet Martin here, Brian Bro, CV Burton at the helm with me, as always. I really don't care, do you?
No.
Okay, so that's the jacket that First Lady Melania Trump wore when visiting the southern border, and she was at the holding facilities. I saw her in there. She was quite attentive to the children. She was asking how they were doing. And, of course, the media flips out, believing that the jacket was intended to basically say that she didn't care about the children that were being detained and separated from their parents, or ripped away, as the liberal media likes to point out, which has been happening for decades, by the way. But to me, I think it was a message, and I think it was a big message to the media to tell them to back off. Don't forget, the media is not going to also tell you the fact that it was just last week, or 2 weeks ago, rather, where they were saying that Melania was getting beat by her husband, and that's why she doesn't show up to events. And then her son was threatened to get thrown into a cage with pedophiles. Maybe she's had enough, CV.
They are out of control. They have crossed the line. I think Melania is highly offended. And the media, the left stream media, I'm calling them, are ginning up violence against our own. And when I say our own, I mean patriots. I mean good, solid Americans. I mean the hardworking taxpayer. They are out of control. You have Peter Fonda, inciting violence, and there's a guy who was plotting to kill Trump recently, and they're looking for him. There's like a $200,000 award looking for this guy who's posting things on social media about how he's going to kill Trump. This is getting out of control, and something's got to be done. Well, it's really sad.
It is scary, too, because, Brian, when they threaten the first family and call for violence against their children and his wife and him and other members of his family, they're basically calling for threats against us, too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the thing that is sickening is really against the president's son, and is what really ticks me off, because something, if that was Barack Obama, the media would never have done that to Barack Obama.
No.
And now, and they didn't do that to, the Bushes, and they didn't do that to Chelsea. Where they have gone off the rails and just decided that all of a sudden it's now okay is not okay.
Because President Trump sees through their lies, and he actually exposes the globalist elitists in a way that no one ever has. And that's one of the reasons when I was supporting Ted Cruz that I switched my support to President Trump, because I remember a debate between all the candidates at the time, and Ted Cruz wouldn't he was actually asked about waterboarding, and he gave a wishy-washy globalist elitist answer, and President Trump says, I think we should waterboard them all, and I'll let it happen. And if we
should do worse.
We should do worse if I had it my way. And God bless him for that. He speaks the truth, and that's exactly why we elected him.
Absolutely. That's the part that I love about him. You know what I mean? Listen, come back to Freedom on Deck. We're going to be talking about Trump signing this separation order, and the libs go mad. Don't turn the dial. 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game.
Is right. Is right.
All right.
That's how I feel about this next subject. It's all about the game and how you play it. Because let me tell you something. Trump don't play games. He just does. Oh, you're crying about kids being separated at the border? Fine. We won't separate them. And that's what he did on Wednesday. President Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday to solve the issue of family separation at the border. The policy keeps in place key components of the administration's zero-tolerance policy of prosecuting illegal border crossings along the U.S.-Mexican border. But while the administration will continue to prosecute crimes of improper entry, the administration will also maintain family unity, including by detaining illegal aliens together where appropriate and consistent with law and available resources. Let me tell you something, man. The liberal media it doesn't matter. We've said it so many times. People have heard us say it. I mean, the guy could literally. That's probably the only time that they would probably give him any credit for anything is if he literally jumped on a grenade and blew himself up to save a baby deer.
They have gone to the extent that I never thought possible. When I watched Rachel Madcow go on her show and cry while her face is down to the point, I can't read it. I can't read it. I'm going to you, Lawrence. I'm going to you. And then Lawrence said, you see what you've done. Saying it to Trump. And then you saw with Time magazine. What does Time do? They put President Trump on the cover with a child that's crying who they claimed was separated from her mother. And it comes out the truth is because the father got a hold of Time and the people that were promoting this idea and said that it's not factual. She was actually never separated from the mother. But just like good liberals, they go and they promote the idea of a fake news story and put it on a national magazine in order to tarnish our great president. And, by the way, this guy, Joe Ganim, the felon Democrat gubernatorial candidate for Connecticut, he was on with Lee Elsey on Friday, or it might have been Thursday. I'm trying to remember here. But Ganim was on there, and he talked about the fact that he went down to the holding facilities on the border with our illustrious mayor, Del Camio, and others to visit the children and women and to see what they were going through, right? Now, our illustrious mayor was invited by Congressman Zeldin and the Trump administration to go and visit the families of slain teenagers from Brentwood, and he declined. So, you see, they don't care about our children dying.
No.
They care about the non-citizens' children dying? No, that's not what it is. It's political optics for them.
Yep.
Anything that makes Trump look bad is good in their view. But when it has to do with the fact that Congressman Zeldin and President Trump's administration were exposing the fact that people coming in from the southern border is killing our kids, they could give a rat's rear, because it's not politically behooving to them. So when our great mayor and people like Ganim go over there, they're basically giving you the finger if you're an American citizen or if you've lost your children. Those kids that were killed in Brentwood, they were ripped from their parents' arms permanently. Not being held somewhere away from their parents
for a very short period of time.
Permanently in the ground, dead.
And in such a way that they are butchered and hacked to bits by machetes.
And how dare our mayor, who's supposed to represent us, decline whether you agree with Donald Trump or Congressman Zeldin or not? You show up for those families, and he didn't.
This is such a fake news story. It's a false narrative from top to bottom, from left to right. And this has been going on for, like, as you said, for decades, Chet. And then on top of that, you have people who are trying to make this a thing that will hurt Trump's base. Oh, Trump caved in and this and that. That's another fake thing, because to not for him to sign the executive order saying that they're not going to separate the children from their parents. How do you know who the parents are?
You don't.
85% of them came in without family.
Right. And do you do a DNA test to see if that's really mom or dad?
Well, they're saying that actually, it's funny that you bring that up. Lee had one of his guests on from, God, I'm drawing a blank on who it is exactly, from the Heritage Foundation. And he said that a DNA test is as simple as a swab. They can do it quite easily and efficiently and cheap. But it's the
But how quickly?
But it's the politics, pretty quickly. But it's the politics that get in the way as usual.
Within 24 hours, they can have a positive, whether that's mom or dad?
I can't tell you that.
Because that's what your libs are going to want. Because they're going to say, because if they were separated or if they were detained, oh my God, they're being detained for a week. 2 weeks. Oh my God, they've been in jail. We're imprisoning these people illegally. No, they crossed into this country and committed a crime in doing that very act.
And, you know, and another thing for the Democrats, which really drives me insane, they put exposure on this in order to cover up with what's going on with the IG and the testimony with the IG, and I do believe that's why this is in the spotlight right now. I don't think it has anything to do with caring for these children. But, you know, these practices have been in place, like we were just saying, for decades.
Sure, Obama did 2
so
million.
They never threw their hands up. It got to the point where there was this journalist who released a picture of these kids, what looked to be this large holding cage. I'll say it because it had the metal screening and all that, and the kids were asleep. And he said, "Look at what Trump's doing to children on the border." Well, comes to find out that the picture's from 2013, and he had to redact what he said and take it off. But he said a simple apology, and they let it go. You see, they never pay for these false, fake stories that they put out there. It's like there's no repercussions.
And that's the
so
problem.
why would they stop doing it? They're not going to.
Because we have to hold their feet to the fire. And what they should have done is flip that story on that freaking knucklehead, and they should have said, "Hey, That picture's from 2014, 2013. Who was president?
Yeah, I know.
So this was going on during Barack, but nobody wanted to say a thing? So what, Trump has to handle this? But Barack gets the pass. Dude.
I'm so sick of the left driving the narrative. Everything that they want to talk about, now everybody on the right has to talk about what the left want to talk about because they own the majority of the mainstream media. All we have is Fox News, and Fox News has to placate.
Even that.
And has to play along and show clips from CNN and show clips from MSNBC. And
have Juan Williams on.
Well, I'm surprised Wallbanger didn't get a copy of that picture and run with that story.
Why does the left have to be the Pied Piper
he
and
did.
lead the way of every narrative, and then we have to follow along and talk about what they want to talk about?
Because of what you just said, because they control, and the media bias is unbelievable. It's like, even on this station, which is CBS affiliate. So in the breaks, we get the CBS news break. When this story was breaking, it actually sickened me, and I'm sorry to say it because I am on the station. It was propaganda that they were playing. It was saying, oh, look, on the southern border, these kids, you heard them crying, and you heard this, and you heard that. Not do they ever, the Democrats and the left, point out the fact that there's human trafficking going on, that most of the violence that occurs from these gangsters are onto their own community and own people.
Right.
So they don't want to point that out because once they do,
Peter Fonda
show
let
the
it slip.
truth.
Peter Fonda let it slip out.
Oh, Peter Fonda did let it slip out.
Yep.
When he said put him in the cage with pedophiles, they say, he was talking about them kidnapping the child. No, he was talking about them putting him in the same caged or a holding facility that you would with somebody that's crossing the border. And basically what he's saying is these kids are being put into holding cells with pedophiles and rapists.
He just doesn't want to stem the supply for his satanic cults that he's probably involved in.
I think you're right about that. I think there's a lot of truth in that. He seemed to know a lot about it.
A little too much.
Weird.
No.
And it takes the spotlight off the IG. It takes the spotlight off the IG report.
That's exactly what it did.
It makes Trump look like Hitler, and it incites violence against his supporters. This is sick from every angle.
What did they think? It just started happening last week? How dumb are people? How stupid can someone be to turn on the TV and go, "Oh, look what he's doing," and then they compare him to Hitler. This one guy that was on CNN, Savage was playing it, and he goes, This brings back images of Auschwitz.
They've gone way too
Yeah.
far this time.
Let me ask you a question. Where do you put these people? If you're not putting them in a facility like this where, I mean,
Where do they
then
want
where-
us to put
Well-
them?
well, that's what I'm
in
saying.
our communities.
no,
That's
but-
where.
No, what I'm saying is, if not in this, I mean, do you put them where every other criminal in America goes, into a jail cell?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Is that where they want them?
Why doesn't Mexico give them asylum? They came in through
Little
the southern
window.
border.
You get a little window, and you get a warm OJ and
It's a good
and a
point.
buttered roll.
It's a good point, CV. They should be giving them asylum because that's a country they're crossing through. You are supposed to get asylum in the first safe democracy that you enter, and that should be Mexico.
Well,
that does
let's
that.
let's just for the record clear that up. First off, they're no democracy, and they are not safe.
Well, let me tell you this. Why do we continue to give humanitarian aid, or let me ask you this rather, to Honduras, to El Salvador, and to Mexico when they refuse, their corrupt governments basically refuse to address the drug cartels and the gangsters that are killing and raping and trafficking children? Why do we continue to give them money and funds?
Well, this is how Trump gets Mexico to pay for the wall. You stop giving them aid.
there you go.
They're paying for it then, aren't they?
I don't know if we're ever going to get that wall, by the way.
Well, it's supposedly it's happening.
This is Mexico
It's-
posing a
they've
threat
already
to the
started.
sovereignty of America.
They've already started work on the wall.
I haven't. I've seen a few stories about it, but I've seen nothing
And
concrete.
let me ask you a question.
Not with Paul Ryan.
Okay,
No, that's what I mean.
Do you really think that if they were started building that wall, the media would report on it? That would be a good thing. That would be like a positive in Trump's favor. They're not going to report on it. That wall could get completed tomorrow, and they wouldn't report on it.
Well,
Paul
that's
Ryan
true.
is no help. Paul Ryan, get out.
Of the beard, as I like to call him. Remember when he grew that gross beard when he was with Barry? I called him Obama's beard. That was not a Michael Savage thing. That was a Chet Martin original. Obama's beard. Paul Ryan.
Well, listen, come back to Freedom on Deck. Police kill an unarmed teen running from a car that was linked to an earlier shooting. Young man is dead because of it. Don't turn the dial. Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now, and stimulating talk. Final thoughts. I got some final thoughts for you. How about this young man who was involved in shooting up his neighborhood and then decides to bail from the car in Pittsburgh and ends up losing his life? But of course, it's going to be the police officer's fault because, you know, he was an unarmed teen. Listen, when police departments get a report that there are 3 suspects in a vehicle driving around shooting up the neighborhood, they're going to respond with force. They are going to respond with force. They're going to respond, and they are going to be hyper alerted responding to that type of call.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and the thing that ticks me off about CNN and a lot of these places is how they report on it. You know, and it's the article that CNN has starts off hours after being sworn in on a local force, a suburban police officer fatally shot an unarmed 17-year-old who ran when police stopped a vehicle that was suspected to be involved in an earlier shooting, authorities said. And that right there if you just read that
You
beginning
think
part,
unarmed teen.
you're thinking
shot for no reason.
You're thinking unarmed teen shot for no reason by a rookie cop.
Right.
Now you read down this extensively long article that CNN wants to put out, and they finally, way down at the bottom towards the end, talk about how this officer has been in law enforcement for 7 years and has worked for other law enforcement agencies.
Right.
You know the localities.
It's the spin. You know, he was unarmed teen. Well, technically, yes.
When he got out of
He
the car.
ran, yeah. When he ran from the car, at that moment, he was unarmed. But they found 2 firearms on the floorboards of that vehicle,
Right.
of these 3 suspects, fitting the description that was reported to police. The car, the amount of people in the car, the whole 9 yards. This is the thing that ticks me off.
Well, you know, and it's also, you're absolutely right, and that's what's maddening about it, is the media spin. Tell us the news story the way it transpired, give us all the facts, and then we can make a decision on whether this police officer should have or should have not opened fire on the suspect. Because they say he was running and he shot the kid. Well, if he's running away and he shot him in the back, there is an issue with that, and I will say that. But we don't know the full story. We don't know if the kid turned around. And if the cop thought that he had a gun and turns around on the police officer, guess what? I'm taking your life. You're not taking mine. I'm going home.
Let's give you some detail. It says, the article says, CNN reports sometime before 8:30 p.m. Tuesday, someone fired 9 40 caliber rounds at a 22-year-old in North Braddock Borough of Allegheny County, police said. The victim, who returned fire, was struck and taken to a hospital. He was treated and released. Witnesses, including one who flagged down a police officer, described the vehicle in the shooting. 13 minutes later, an East Pittsburgh officer saw a silver Chevy Cruze, which matched the vehicle's description, police said. The officer stopped the vehicle around 8:40. Okay,
And the vehicle
8:40,
had
only
had
10
bullet
minutes
holes.
later. Only 10 minutes later. Okay,
And the vehicle had bullet holes in its, in its
correct.
back windshield.
the officer ordered the driver out of the car and onto the ground. Police said Anton and another passenger bolted, in quotations, from the vehicle, and the East Pittsburgh officer opened fire, striking Anton. Allegheny County Police said. Reggie Shufford, executive director of the ACLU of Pennsylvania, said Thursday,
Yay.
it appears the East Pittsburgh officer discharged the basic humanity of this boy. Or, I'm sorry, disregarded the basic humanity of this boy.
The basic humanity of a kid that was, and listen, he is a boy. He's
17.
He's 17. He's a boy. But he was attempting to kill someone before he was taken out. He was attempting to murder someone.
9:40.
That was another black child. You know what? We
Right.
talk about black on black crime. There's a great example of it. You know what? If this kid's out trying to kill other kids, good riddance. I'm sorry. Give me a break. You get
his humanity.
his humanity.
Where-
he was
where was-
trying to kill someone.
He disregarded someone else's humanity. CNN.
and the other one's shooting back. It sounds like they were probably both in gangs.
Probably.
If they're shooting back at each other, back and forth, then you got to assume that this kid's a gangster.
Or that they
You
knew
won't
each
see
other.
that in CNN, though.
It's just another opportunity for the left to divide. And they love to make the victim into an angel. And they quote Antoine's friends and family as saying, he had $1 million smile. He was a great kid. And that racist officer mowed him down at 17 years old. It's ridiculous. But I will have to say one thing though, that we have to upgrade our weapons so that we don't necessarily have to kill somebody who's running away, but maybe just stop them. You know, a stun gun that could be used from a far distance. It's 2018. Why is our technology still from the dark ages? I'll tell you why. Because we spent too much money on welfare, food stamps, and refugees.
Well, and because you can't listen. The other part of it is politicians don't want to fund our police.
No.
They don't. We don't even give them long guns, which should be provided for them. When that happened in Dallas, you remember that guy went up on the building and he shot raining down bullets on those police officers that died, protecting the marchers for Black Lives Matter, by the way, and saving them. They didn't even have long guns in their squad cars. They had to bring them in because they're not funded the right way. How the hell are we going to give them weapons like you're talking about?
Well, even if you gave them some sort of loadout where they do, the first 3 bullets in the clip are rubber bullets. I mean, that means that an officer in a deadly situation has to fire 3 rounds off before he can stop
own
somebody.
life.
Exactly.
It's not fair to the good officers.
Even if you gave the first round maybe the first round, the first round's a rubber bullet, and then after that, it might. I don't think you're going to stop that. I think, look, here's what I think. Stop going around the neighborhood and having shootouts, and then you won't have the police killing you.
And start raising your kids right,
Right.
My God, most of these...
Where's this kid at 17 have a gun? Because if
he's in a gang.
Because if it's a pistol, he's a criminal right there. All right? Even in Pennsylvania, you got to be 21.
And it's the left trying to fuel the racist narrative again. And it doesn't matter what color the victim was or what color the cop was. In actuality, we're all the same color.
Are we talking about the 22-year-old that got shot, or are we talking about the 17-year-old that got shot?
We're talking about the fact that our kids should be taught growing up that we're all one color. The human race is one color. We're just different shades of the same color.
Listen.
What really counts
Listen.
is ideology and philosophy and what goes on in your head, not what you look like.
Listen, it doesn't matter what color you are because they'll put a media spin on that too. I mean, look at the who is that and I think he's a scumbag that was like the neighborhood watch guy and he shot Trayvon Martin, right? And they described him as a white man. No, he's Hispanic. George Zimmerman is a Hispanic. They call him Jorge. He's a Hispanic, for God's sake. So they will twist it any which way that they can.
Just a couple of shades lighter than the guy he killed.
That's right. A picture doesn't lie.
It's just shades.
But listen, I do want to give us just a brief moment to tell you who's coming on the program next week. We do have Xander Gibb from XanderGibb.com. He's a regular to the program, and he will be coming by. And we're going to be talking about all the issues of the day with Donald Trump and the Trump administration. And we have former Navy SEAL and Director of Advocacy for America First Policies and America First Action Network, Carl Higbee. Don't go anywhere. Keep the dial turned to 94.9 all week long and come back next week for another fantastic episode of Freedom on Deck.
PunishForBeingAParent.com, don't forget.